In the heart of the Red Sea, a new front has ignited. Israeli warplanes pound Yemen's Hodeidah port, strikes they call defense, but which leave civilians buried beneath the rubble. From air raid sirens to funeral prayers, this is no longer just Gaza's war. It's spreading fast. Israel has confirmed that it launched an attack against Yemen's port of Hodeidah in its latest round of strikes. The Israeli military says the operation is aimed squarely at the Houthis. But on the ground, reports say dozens of Yemeni civilians have been killed in these ongoing raids.
A few minutes ago, our pilots attacked the port of Hodeidah in Yemen. It is the main supply port for the Houthis regime. At the same time, our forces are operating in Gaza City with the aim, of course, of achieving the enemy's defeat, but at the same time also of evacuating the population. We are currently making efforts to open additional routes to enable a faster evacuation of the Gazan population, to separate it from the terrorists whom we want to attack.
According to the Houthis-affiliated Al Masirah TV, Israel carried out 12 strikes on September 16th. The Israeli army maintains they were a direct response to the Houthis' military activity. From the Houthis' side, the reaction was swift. Spokesperson Yahya Saree declared on X,
"Our air defenses are currently confronting the Israeli aircrafts that are launching an aggression against our country."
Just hours before those strikes began along the Red Sea coast, the Israeli military had issued a stark warning. Its Arabic language spokesperson, Avichai Adrai, posted a message on X.
"For your safety, we urge everyone in Hodeidah port and the vessels anchored there to evacuate the area immediately."
Israel claims that the Houthis have been using Hodeidah to receive weapons shipments from Iran, shipments that eventually fuel attacks on Israel and its allies. The IDF said its airstrikes were aimed at military infrastructure at the Houthi-controlled port. Defense Minister Israel Katz doubled down after the strikes. He made clear that this wasn't a one-off operation, but part of a broader strategy.
"The Houthi terror organization will continue to take blows and will pay painful prices for any attempt to attack the state of Israel."
He added that the strike was intended to tighten what he described as a naval and aerial blockade against the Houthis. Since Israel's war on Gaza began in October 2023, the Houthis, who are backed by Iran, have repeatedly launched drones and missiles at Israel, claiming their actions are in solidarity with Palestinians. They have also targeted cargo ships in the Red Sea, many of which Israel says are tied to its interests. One of the most high-profile Houthi attacks in recent weeks was a drone strike on Israel's Ramon Airport near Eilat. That happened on September 14th. The drone slammed into the arrivals hall, injuring 2 people and forcing the airport to halt operations for about 2 hours. Israel's military says the strikes on Hodeidah and elsewhere in Yemen are direct retaliation for those attacks, and the escalation has been sharp. Last week, the IDF reported intercepting a missile fired from Yemen, describing it as yet another sign of the Houthis' growing threat. Late last month, Israel raised the stakes even further when it carried out an airstrike in Sana'a, assassinating Houthi Prime Minister Ahmed al-Rahawi. The strike also killed nearly half his cabinet. In response, the Houthis vowed vengeance. Weeks later, the group's caretaker prime minister stood before his supporters and promised the fight against Israel would continue. For Israel, this campaign is about cutting off what it sees as an Iranian lifeline to the Houthis. For the Houthis, every strike is more fuel for their narrative of resistance. And for civilians in Yemen, many of them far removed from the battle lines, the cost is already devastating. As the strikes moved inland, the devastation became even more visible. In Yemen's capital, Sana'a, and in the Al Jawf governorate, dozens of people were killed in Israeli attacks on September 10th. Among the dead were journalists. Houthi officials reported the deaths of almost 36 media workers. On September 16th, hundreds of mourners attended funeral services for 31 Yemeni journalists who were reportedly killed in the Israeli airstrikes that hit Sana'a last week. Al Masirah TV, the Houthi-run broadcaster, aired the funerals. Inside the mosque, mourners recited prayers before the caskets were carried to their burial sites. Honor guards flanked the coffins, draped and prepared for ceremonial send-off. The strikes that killed those journalists, Houthi authorities say, also hit residential areas, a gas station, and even a military site. The Houthis-run health ministry reported that many of the victims were civilians. The Israeli military, however, described the attacks differently. It said the targets were part of Houthi military infrastructure and stressed they were carried out in response to missile and drone attacks on Israel. The Houthis argue otherwise. They say the Israeli strikes amount to collective punishment, hitting not just fighters, but entire communities. The funerals of the journalists became a rallying point, an opportunity to frame Israel's campaign as an assault on Yemen's people and their ability to tell their story. Meanwhile, Israel continues to justify its strategy as defensive. Officials insist the Houthis are receiving advanced weapons from Iran through ports like Hodeidah and are escalating their reach, as shown by the strike on Ramon Airport. The IDF says more than a dozen airstrikes have been launched against Houthi-held areas in Yemen, targeting everything from power stations to suspected weapons facilities. From the Houthis' perspective, their campaign against Israel is not just about Yemen, but about Palestine. They portray every missile and drone strike as part of a broader struggle against Israel's nearly 2-year-long offensive in Gaza. That narrative has helped them frame themselves as defenders of a regional cause, rallying support even as Yemenis at home suffer the consequences of retaliatory strikes. So where does this leave things? Israel is now striking deeper into Yemen, not just military infrastructure, but areas where civilians live and work. The Houthis, undeterred by casualties, promise more attacks on Israeli targets and its allies in the Red Sea. The war in Gaza may have been the starting point, but what we're now seeing is a widening conflict, stretching from the Mediterranean to the Arabian Peninsula. Each drone, each missile, and each airstrike risks expanding this into a regional war, one that could draw in Iran more directly and push the Red Sea into deeper instability. The Houthis say they are braced for what comes next. Israel's leadership says it will continue hitting them until the threat is neutralized. And for Yemenis, already enduring one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, the bombs keep falling.